created to, oh great. It's an organization that we started, just a handful of us picking up trash in off the beach in Santa Monica, and then it became a monthly event. And before we knew it, we were picking up trash every month. In 2019, which was our second year of officially being an organization, we picked up 1,200 pounds and some change of plastic right off of just Santa Monica. And that doesn't account for the 3 other countries that we expanded into: Nepal, Mexico, and the Philippines. So we've really been, we're a small organization, but our intentions are to pick up as much debris from the environment as possible and create as much awareness as well. And with the pandemic, I think this is an opportunity for us to use events like this with experts like Alyssa, Stefan, Ina, and Chris to expand on what can we do on a day-to-day basis. So your presence here is a big deal because we get to share what we've been working on with everybody here, and I appreciate you being here very much. And then just so that Zero Debris is a non-for-profit. We're mainly funded by our supporters, and we have a program called the Angels Club. And the Angels Club are basically the supporters of Zero Debris, who are either donating $5 per month, which is a cup of coffee or so per month. That really helps cover all of our expenses that we have from marketing, creating events like this, paying for the website, some insurances and other things to create awareness. Or they're pledging to do a birthday fundraiser, which is simply on their birthday on Facebook saying, I'd like to donate to this organization. If you're interested, please support. And usually there's a lot of people, kind souls in the world that are willing to help. So if you're interested in that, we'll talk more about the Angels Club at the very end to support us continue our mission. Thank you.
Thanks, Hamid. Yeah, and thanks for bringing that up. The Angels Club is such a small thing for a $5 a month donation that someone can do to support, but it goes a long way. And even just one month of that, or just signing up for $5 a month, it contributes to a pound of plastic being removed from the Santa Monica beaches. So every little bit counts. And the idea with it is that when there's a lot of angels, that it spreads it all out and just creates the support for Zero Debris to be around forever. So it's a legacy club. So we'll have some information about that a little bit later, and there's a sign up form if you're interested. So did you want to announce our first speaker?
Yes, I would love to. So we have some great information to share with you, but it's very dear to my heart to introduce the next speaker, which is Stefan. He's fascinated by the weather. The cool thing about him, he loves chasing storms, okay? And then he did his master's in meteorology in the University of Oklahoma and a PhD in the University of Wyoming. And right now he is doing his postdoctoral scholar at UCLA Center for Climate Science. And his work is basically using computers in order to predict the future weather and climate across the US. So let's hear from Stefan. Bring your listening of the amazing information he's going to share for all this. So.
By the way, he's got a great voice, so.
My apologies. Can everyone hear me all right? I've done Zoom enough to know that the unmute is a big problem. Anyways, well, giving thanks is very important. So first off, I want to thank Hamid Pezeshkian, my best friend, and the rest of the Zero Debris gang for inviting me to speak here. And then all of the attendees, of course, for showcasing your enthusiasm and interest in a very prominent issue that our children and our grandchildren will have to contend with. And then finally, I did not know they were going to be on the call, but the rest of my adopted family, the Pezeshkian family, for being here. So anyway, so I'm going to be talking to you all today about kind of a nexus of things as it pertains to the pandemic, climate change, and then the power of humanity. And so I've got a lot to get through. I'm a very, I lack conciseness sometimes as a scientist. But just a little disclaimer before we get started. While I do present quite a bit of facts here, they're spun via my own viewpoint. And so if you're going to sue anybody whenever you don't like something you hear, sue me and not UCLA. Okay, so the theme of today is realizing your power. And again, I'm going to walk you through some examples of just how powerful humanity is through the lens of both climate change and the pandemic. And I want to start off with this. So people tend to believe what they can see. And my goal today, amongst giving you a better feel for climate change and where we're at and all that jazz, I really want to kind of enroll those of you who may be more skeptical about and more prone to believing in what they can see to maybe trusting what you cannot see. So we're going to go from the visible to the invisible, starting with the visible. And once I've gone through a couple of examples as it pertains to weather and climate, then we'll get into the invisible. So what is visible? What can we see? Well, on a daily basis, we see the weather, whether it's the beautiful ocean, a tornado, or a sunset. Weather is a set of atmospheric conditions at a given time or place. And take into account haze, smog, pollution events. That is also a form of weather. And those, specifically those latter wet types of weather, haze and smog, those stem from human emissions. And so getting into COVID and the coronavirus and whatnot, the pandemic has been absolutely horrible for the global economy. The livelihoods of so many have been ruined, and our hearts go out to those affected. From a scientific viewpoint, it has been a fascinating test bed. It's really showcased the power of humanity. So what you're looking at here are basically a proxy for pollution. We're looking at NO2 in 2019 on the left and 2020 on the right. And we're looking, there's much more red in that figure on the left. So basically, through the installation of these rather draconian measures to reduce emissions, to reduce the spread of coronavirus, to kind of cut the spread of coronavirus, we have seen massive reductions in emissions. And this led to unprecedented improvements in air quality. Again, things we can see, whether it's London, Los Angeles, New York City, New Delhi, we've seen just these massive improvements in air quality. So realize your power. And we've also seen, we've also been able to link the pandemic related emissions reductions across the Indian subcontinent to changes in springtime and summer precipitation last year. It's absolutely fascinating. And we think that a lot of leadership and corporations don't really know what's going on, but actually they do. Case in point, Beijing Olympics 2008. There were policies instituted before the Olympic Games, before the kickoff to the Olympic Games, that basically on timescales of a week to a month, they reduced emissions such that the air quality went from what you see on the left to what you see on the right. So leadership knows. So now let's shift our focus from the visible to the invisible. Now, again, these changes that we just went through are things we can see. We know the power of humanity. We know that we can institute these changes in hours to weeks. However, when it comes to the invisible, we can't see it. We're getting into climate. So I gave some examples earlier of weather. Again, we can see the weather, but what does 30 years look like? Visualize that in your mind when you sit at the computer. We can't see 30 years in front of our faces. And so this is why a lot of people have a lot of difficulty with climate and climate change. So it's hard to take a picture of climate and climate change. However, if we're shifting our climate, and in the simplest possible example, if we're warming our climate, you can think of, we're going to be prone to being subjected to more types of heat waves, for instance. But there are other risks involved with climate change as well. But I just wanted to give you all the simplest possible example. So why is the climate changing? So obviously you all know of CO2, or if you don't, welcome to CO2. It's invisible to our eyes. And if we look through the, if we look through the looking glass over the past million years, we see that there are ups and downs in CO2. This is a million years. And then enter stage left human beings around 200,000 years ago. We really didn't do much to affect the historical CO2 pattern. We still saw a down and up and then another down. Well, go to time zero there at the furthest, almost the furthest right point, and that's 1950. We are seeing an absolute smashing of the historical CO2 records. We're in the previous million years, the CO2 did not get above 310 parts per million. Now we're up over 410, 420. And especially since 1950, we're seeing a really sharp increase in the mean global temperatures. And this isn't just coming from US measurements, Chinese measurements. This is also coming from the European modeling centers, et cetera, the Australian observational centers, you name it. So correlation, causation, it's fact. So of course we have the warming, but just to kind of throw out some statistics at you, the 10 hottest years in human history have all been since 2005. And the two hottest years on record are 2016 and 2020. They're tied. But people always talk about global warming. Well, what we need to really be thinking about is the changing in and shifts in natural resources. And then, of course, the risks to coastal and low-lying areas. So, of course, with the warming, we're getting melting of the land ice sheets, so the Antarctic and the Greenlandic ice sheets, unprecedented melting over the last 30 years. That's contributing to sea level rises. And that melting has increased our sea level height by around 8 inches over the past century. And that doesn't sound like a lot, but you go talk to an urban planner and an infrastructure manager in coastal areas, and they'll say, wow, that's a lot. And then especially here across California, we've seen this increasing whiplash. So we'll get really dry years followed by really wet years. So we're getting droughts followed by flooding years. And this has led to conditions that has increased the propensity for these mudslide events that we're seeing in the foothills of the Sierra, if you're familiar with the California geography. And then of course, oceanic acidification, as the oceans are a prime uptake source for CO2. We're pumping more CO2 into the atmosphere. The ocean absorbs it, its pH goes down, and then we're seeing a deterioration in the biodiversity of the ocean. Why is CO2 such a big deal? Okay, again, it's invisible. Well, when we pump CO2 into the atmosphere, it doesn't just come out of the atmosphere like that. It cycles through the atmosphere on time scales of decades to centuries. To put it in context, CO2 that was emitted in the 50s, the 1940s and 1950s, is warming our climate today. It is still there. It is a well-mixed greenhouse gas. That's what we refer to it. And it isn't removed that easily. That's why there's been this big push for carbon capture technologies and whatnot. But that does not mean that humanity cannot change. So where are we? Where is our trajectory right now? So in climate science, we don't just push a global warming scenario. We consider all contingencies, all possibilities, or as many as possible. And what you're looking at here in this panel on the right is basically our scenario space. So we have our historical period. You're looking at our carbon emissions up till 2005. And then from 2005 onwards, we have our projections. And we can compare where we were in 2014 to those projections that we considered in 2005. And guess what we find? We find that in terms of carbon emissions, we're writing one of our upper tier projections in terms of carbon emissions. So that's not a good signal. So if we're emitting on the upper end of our projections, that means we're probably going to warm on the upper end of our projections, and we're going to see the harshest climate extremes in the future. So as we kind of get to the crux of this talk, really, I want to stress what lies in store just from kind of some commonsensical points of view. So due to warming alone, GDPs of economies at lower latitude, so like the tropics, they're going to suffer. Meanwhile, the GDPs are forecast to grow in response to climate change. You can kind of think about it, well, if hot areas get hotter, it's going to reduce their overall workers' potential, and it's going to cost more to cool their workers down. But as we progress with the implementation of climate-friendly policies, we cannot leave fringe groups and those of lower socioeconomic status behind. climate change is a civil rights issue. And the first time I heard that, I thought, why are we putting civil rights in the same conversation as climate change? But no, it is a civil rights issue. And so as we move forward and we begin to implement climate-friendly policies, we cannot leave these fringe groups behind. So we must change the narrative. So it's not—
Why is it a civil rights issue, Stefan?
What? Go ahead.
Why is it a civil rights issue?
Because, okay, the easiest possible example is, so if we warm the planet, it costs money to cool ourselves down. It costs money for us to pay our bills. If we're hotter, if there are more hot days, we're going to have to spend more money to cool ourselves off. Well, those who aren't making as much aren't going to have that capacity. Does that make sense? And that is the simplest possible example. If we're on a more complex level, if we're changing our water resources, we might make water more scarce in a changing climate, and therefore we might have to pay more for it. And that is also going to affect those of lower socioeconomic status more preferentially. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
Yep, of course, yeah. So just to finish up, because I don't want to go on just prattling on about climate change too much, but it's not just global warming. We're talking about stresses, unprecedented stresses on our hydrologic infrastructure, and this kind of alludes to what I just brought up. Our aqueduct system and irrigation systems and water transport systems here in California are built to withstand once in 100-year events. How are those events going to change in a changing climate? Well, many of our models are projecting that those extrema, the intensity of those extremes, is going to go up. So we're talking about a complete retrofit of these systems, and we need to know this because these retrofits they're not conducted over the course of 6 months. These take years to install. 2, changing the narrative, be a little bit more malleable to believing in the invisible. Okay, we've seen obvious examples of the power of humanity, but the real test of the iron of humanity is going to come through these incremental pushes in the coming years and decades towards climate-friendly policies that preserve the health of this planet. And then 3, and this is something again that I just stressed, acknowledging that climate change is indeed a civil rights issue. We must finally, and this is really the most important thing that I want to stress to you all, we cannot rely on leadership to unilaterally fix this problem. This is going to have to be something that's grassroots. We're going to have to change our everyday lives incrementally, not uncomfortably, like we had to with coronavirus, but incrementally, so that we can leave this world a better place for our children and grandchildren. So a couple of ideas, not even ideas. These are things that you can do in the now and in the future to kind of push this necessity that is changing the narrative. So one, so transportation carbon emissions account for between 25 and 30% of the US carbon footprint. So drive less, ride share, take public transportation, for especially those of you that are living in big cities. So I contemplated whether to say this or not last week's kind of run through, but I'm legally blind. I can't see. But I lived in a city for my PhD that was not transportation friendly. And of course, everyone thinks you need a car here in LA. I lived my life just fine, both in Los Angeles here now and previously in Laramie, Wyoming. I lived my life just fine. I got to go skiing back in the day in Laramie. It was a great time. And so you can make a difference. And so for me, transportation is an obvious one, and you just kind of have to plan a little more. Even if you drive one or two times less per week, this can be a big deal. All right, 2. So we already see this with what they're doing in China, but emphasize to your children that climate change, it's not a debate anymore. It is not a debate, and we need to be teaching and educating our children as such. You know, in China right now, they are not teaching climate change as something that is debatable in their classrooms, and nor should we. It is irresponsible for any parent to teach their children otherwise. And then 3 kind of builds on 2, but it's kind of like, well, push your elected officials to champion for climate-friendly policies. So anyways, with that, I want to leave you with a quote that I completely disagree with. It's a very interesting quote. You cannot reason someone out of something that he or she was not reasoned into. And that's basically saying that you should not try and argue with people who already have their minds up. I disagree. Argue, tell people that we need to change, work with them, connect with them, relate with them, be powerful, okay? So we can facilitate powerful changes for this planet. And with that, I will thank everyone for your time. And I don't know if we'll take questions later.
Woo, thank you so much, Stefan.
Thank you.
And I love what Stefan shared for, just to get the facts. And, it was really poignant about making incremental change. It doesn't have to be like how COVID changed everything suddenly and as confrontational. We can do it little by little. And it's great, all the different ideas that you gave us that we could apply to our life. So thank you for that, Stefan.
Yeah, and if I can just add something, I've spent the last 30 years of my life, up until coming to California, of course, in the two of the most conservative states in the country, Oklahoma and Wyoming. Mm-hmm. So you would think that, I came into UCLA, I came into climate change with probably the most open mind, most skeptical mind as you could have. And I've seen the results. So
yeah, thank you. It's inspiring, even from that in that conversation, you're making a difference. Did you want to introduce our next speaker?
Yes, I would love to. So let's shift our minds. We have now the general of the climate change now. Let's shift a little bit of what can we do and more actions to take. So our next speaker is Ina, and I'm going to take a second guess on how to do your last name. Sorry about that. Kitachik. I'm sorry. Kitachik. Okay, thank you, Carissa. Thank you. She is currently the operation manager of biofuels, and she manages the zero waste certification programs at SES Global Services. She works to certify companies all around the world to have the processes that have positive environmental impacts. And most recently, she has written a new zero waste facility level standard for SES Global Services, and she received her master's in city and regional planning from Cornell University and has worked in the environmental field since 2013. We had the opportunity to hear a little bit about what she's going to speak right now, and it's amazing. She's also a mom, and she's having this time allocated apart from her busy life and what she creates as a woman. So yeah, let me introduce Ina, and let's hear from her.
Thank you so much. So my transition from Stefan's presentation, there is actually a direct transition because Stefan is talking about incremental changes that we could do. And what I'm going to talk about is exactly an incremental change that we can do. So I'll show you my presentation, but very briefly, I'm going to talk to you about what is compost, why should we compost, how should we think about our own food waste, what opportunities exist to compost, what to consider if you're composting at home, and if you can't compost at home or in any other capacity, what other options do you have? Okay, so I'm going to start my slideshow, and I'm going to, well, first I have to share screen, and then I can start my slideshow. Okay, everyone sees? Okay, compost. So what is compost? So according to CalRecycle, compost is the end product resulting from the controlled biological decomposition of organic material from a feedstock into a stable humus-like product that has many environmental benefits. Yes, but what is it? So compost is basically organic food waste, so anything that has ever grown or lived that decomposes over time and turns into soil, essentially soil. So in the picture here, you could see like potato peelings and carrot peelings and old cucumbers. And on the right side, you see someone just holding soil. So essentially that's what happens. That's all compost is. As far as we're concerned, what materials can go into compost? So if you think about your own life, like any food waste you have, any yard trimmings, if you have like little bushes in your yard, any wood, but also what I missed on here is also like any like napkins or soiled paper, or containers that you receive that are paper based, that don't have any like kind of plastic in it, that could also go into your compost. Why should we compost? And this also ties into what Stefan was saying. So, sorry, I need to move my little screen. So, so nearly 40% of all waste that goes into our landfills is organic. So that means almost half of the material that's rotting away in landfills is either wood, or it's food, or it's yard trimmings. And why is that important? Because landfill gas it's produced by these microscopic organisms which thrive on those conditions. So there's no air in there, right? So it's just like a water-based environment. And that is what's producing 50% carbon dioxide and 50% methane. Methane is actually 21 times as potent as carbon dioxide. So the warming potential that's coming out of our landfills is extremely high. And landfills are the second largest source of man-made methane, accounting for 22% of all methane emissions. So that means that every day when you and I throw away our food waste into our trash bins and it goes to landfill, we're contributing to increasing those emissions. So why should we compost? Because this is an easy way to just not do that, to not be contributing to those global warming emissions. Instead, you could contribute to making more soil. Yeah, next. So how should we think about our own food waste? I'm a city girl. Like, I did not grow up in the country, or I did not know about composting until I was like in college. So, growing up, I just thought food waste is food waste. The eggshell goes in the garbage. Like, anything that I don't need anymore, I don't want to eat anymore, just goes in the garbage. But and then that goes away, right? There's an away. How should we think about food waste? We should think about food waste as a resource that we're just holding on and that we're giving to someone to take from us. We're storing it. So how would you store something that you were going to give to someone for them to use, right? So say you had a teddy bear that you no longer want, or like a childhood toy. You wouldn't like store it. You wouldn't like pour it in the same container as like soup that you're not eating, right? Or if you had a CD player, who uses CDs anymore, right? If you were going to give that away, throw that away, you wouldn't like put it with a tomato that was going bad, right? You'd put it separately. Because you know that these materials, in order for them to have another path, they need to be separate. Otherwise, one will ruin the other. So that's how we should think about our food waste. I'm storing this for someone to pick it up to use to have another use, because there's no away. It goes somewhere. So think about your trash bin at home right now. Like, what's in there? Like, do you have like coffee grinds, and there's also like plastic wrappings, like something like that. What I'd want is for you to have a visceral reaction that's like, oh yeah, those should not be in the same place. So start to rethink how you throw away your own trash. So what are the opportunities to compost? So the most available resources, and again, this is depending on which city you live in and which part of the country you live in. Some cities have already implemented these systems, some haven't. But the very first step you would take, like the most low-hanging fruit, is to check whether your city has issued a green bin. So that's this bin right over here. If you like peek outside or like in your apartment building, go downstairs, if there's a green bin, that's most likely going to be used for compost. So 3 of these 3 bins, this black one is landfill, this blue one's usually recycling, the green one, oh yeah.
Is there, my screen doesn't show the bins, so I just wanted to bring that up in case it's happening for other people.
Yeah, we're on the other side. Same.
Okay, hold on, let me maybe exit my, let me exit.
We're seeing the why should we compost. Okay, there it is.
There we go. So
maybe I'll just stay, I'll stay out of the slideshow view. Okay, so is everyone seeing this one okay?
Yes, can you zoom in a little? Oh, there it is, perfect, you got it.
perfect, thanks.
Okay, so yeah, so everyone sees this green bin now?
Yep.
Okay, so yeah, so there's the green bin is generally for compost. So if you're in your apartment building, next time you go out to throw the trash, just check, like, do I have a green bin? It's usually small, like smaller than your recycling bin, and the recycling bin is usually smaller. Maybe you have like a very big black bin that takes up, most of the space. So check for the green bin. If you do have the green bin, then sometimes your city will also issue you your own little in-home compost bucket. I know Oakland, California, where I used to live, when they rolled out their compost program, they issued every single apartment their own compost bin. If you don't, if your city didn't do that, or, if that did not happen, it's okay. It could be literally any bin, any little pail can suffice as a way to store compost. So here you have this metal one here. It has a liner. So you don't you could buy these fancy compostable plastic liners. That's an option. What we do at home is that we just use paper bags. So if we go to Trader Joe's every once in a while, and we ask for the paper bag, we just use that paper bag to put the compost in it. So there's not like a lot of excessive money that you need to spend in order to do this. You could also not use a liner at all, and you could just dump it in, but then you'd probably want to wash the bin every once in a while. So for low-hanging fruit, that's like your first option. Your second option, and this is what I did when I lived in New York before New York City rolled out their compost program, is I found out that my local market accepted compost. So what I did then is I kind of just stored it in the freezer, and then I brought it over whenever I was on my way to work. I would just stop by the market, dump my compost, and go. So that's low-hanging fruit. If you're actually a super enthusiast and you're like, I want to compost, I want to do this right, I want to do this at home, you also have more options. So one option is something called vermicomposting. And this could actually be done indoors or outdoors, as long as you're just composting vegetal matter. So that's like potato peels, vegetable peels. So you wouldn't want to put any dairy or meat in this. But basically, it's just a bin, and you get worms. So there's like a one-time cost to purchase these worms. And then you just, give them the scraps like every day or every other day. And they're very happy and they thrive, and there's no smell. It just smells like soil. So it's amazing. So you could do that indoors or outdoors. If you're kind of squeamish about worms, which some people are, you have another option called Bokashi. This could also be indoors. So when we lived in New York, I also subscribed to a service that would pick up our bin, and we would store the material in this bin under the sink, and we would add something called a Bokashi bran. And the difference here is that it actually ferments the material, kind of like how alcohol is made. So it makes so there is a smell, but it mostly smells like bran and a little bit of alcohol. You don't get that nasty garbage smell that you would when you're mixing stuff, and you're putting it in your little garbage bin. So that's another option. And those are more for apartments. You can use them outdoor or indoor, but those are good for apartments. But if you do have the outdoor space, then getting a backyard composter is definitely an option. And there's many, many different kind of bins and setups and do-it-yourself setups that if you just Google, you'll have a lot of options. So to talk a little bit more about that, if you are considering to compost at home, and that could be in your apartment or in your backyard, before you dive into that, make sure you have a plan for the material, because the material doesn't go away, so it does you'll notice it will reduce in size, but it doesn't disappear. So what you want to consider if you decided to compost at home, is that you want to consider the size of your space, whether you have any concerns for odors, and what are you going to do with the end product. So for example, when I lived in New York City in an apartment building, I talked to my super and I was like, hey, I'm going to have this soil amendment. Can I bury it somewhere on our building grounds? So he did let me do that once, but then it wasn't a sustainable solution. So that wasn't an option. But maybe you have a different relationship with the super, or maybe they're super open to that, because he could go to Home Depot to get more soil amendment and more soil, or he could just get it from you. So it's up to him or her. The other option is that you could take it to your local park and bury it under a tree. I wouldn't recommend that you just dump it. I think it would need to be buried. So just have a plan for it. If you have a garden, that would be ideal. We have a worm composter here. We have a smaller backyard, but my husband uses it to like puts it on the tomatoes or puts it on like the cucumbers, like in the summer. So, have a plan in place for using it. And it might make you into a gardener. So before you make a purchase, make sure you have a plan for the compost. So my final thought is, well, like, what if you really just don't have an opportunity? What if your city doesn't have a system in place and your apartment's too small or you won't have an opportunity to do it? Think about other businesses in your community or even online that are doing these things and buy from those businesses. So for example, Whole Foods had converted a good amount of its stores to make sure that their stores are composting. So that's something good to know. Then you feel a little bit better about shopping at Whole Foods. I know that, for example, in LA, there's a restaurant called Sweet Green that I think they might be composting, but what more, they changed their bowls from being plastic to being made from bagasse, which is like the end product of sugar, like sugar manufacturing, like the shavings of the sugar. It's basically like a waste, it's an agricultural waste product that they're now using like instead of plastic. So just think about those restaurants, what restaurants are doing good out there and how can I support them? You're gonna get that salad anyway. You could just pick the place that actually has an environmental agenda. So that, in a nutshell, that is why we should compost, and that's what we can do to compost. And if you have any questions, you can ask me later.
Yeah, and I know there's also some questions in the chat, Ina, so maybe if you want to answer them that way, that would be great. And it's just so interesting finding out about composting, and I do have a compost bin, so I didn't even know that that was an option. So now I'll just have 3 trash cans, and then I can have one for food and one for trash and one for recycling, and that's not a big deal. And so it's nice to hear about those little ways. And I know Nairi had a question for you in the chat too about like composting on your porch. So we can answer her, but thank you so much, Ina. We appreciate that and all that great advice.
Thank you.
Very good. So let's go to our next speaker, Shires. I'm very grateful to introduce her. She is passionate about the environment. When we were having these discussions on what to create, she was immediately like, yes, I can let everybody know what's going on. And I'm really eager for everybody to know about what I've been searching about. And she did take it seriously in the pandemic, and you will hear more from her. But let's welcome mom, photographer, and passionate advocate for the environment, Shires.
Hi, everyone. I'm Chris. I wanted to thank Ina and Stefan for your great talks. I really enjoyed them, and I'm learning so much. I want to jump right in to sharing my screen for the slideshow, and then just let me know if you can see this. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thanks for saying yes. Okay, really, this talk is about my journey to reduce our family's plastic consumption. And I really started digging in on March 13th to 2020. And that's when our family went into lockdown due to COVID-19, like so many others. It's really like when I started to examine our plastic consumption. So 2 months into being locked down, because we really didn't go out of the house except for walks, we'd taken like 10,000 walks around in our neighborhood, and we had a really happy dog and an angry kid. And that's my husband. I don't know what he's doing. But we all agreed that the air was so clean, the lack of traffic was just a joy. And we were like, couldn't it be cool if LA was like this forever? So we were enjoying all these environmental benefits and talking about it a lot. But we were noticing that we were discarding a lot more garbage and recycling each week, mainly because we were ordering things online, like groceries and from Amazon, quite frankly, because it was easy and fast. So one of the things that really struck me, because I really try to recycle a lot, were these cool liner bags from Amazon Prime. And I looked at them and I was like, it said that you could be recycled, but I eventually dug a little deeper. And Emily Atkin, she's a climate journalist at Heated, said, she dug into it too. And she was like, these bags actually can't be recycled because they're made of like a variety of different plastics and recycling plants won't touch them. And we were getting a lot of them. Like, I was like, I wish they would just not put these things like in these bags. And I was starting to feel really guilty. I like kind of pride myself that at Sunday nights, our blue bin is brimming over. We don't have much in our black garbage bin. I'm always telling my husband, okay, go to the neighbor's blue bins because theirs are empty and we can put our excess recycling in there. And if I saw a chasing arrow on any package, I'd put it in the blue bin. It's called wish recycling. And but not everything with a chasing arrow little symbol is actually recyclable. Some actually just gets thrown away, even if you do put it in the blue bin. And so, like, I was also reading a lot on Nextdoor, which is like a neighborhood app during this time, because it's like, well, what else, right? And there are a lot of confused people out there about like what's recyclable, what isn't. I'm just going to read a couple of things that I saw my neighbors posting, sometime in the last 10 months. I've also blacked out their names for their privacy. This woman wrote, I was told that LA does not recycle things in blue bins any longer and everything just goes to the same dump. Hard to believe, but can someone please tell me the truth? The only response she got back was that 3 different trucks come, so I'm not sure. And then someone else posted randomly like, don't bother recycling the plastic, they don't. Someone, inquired about plastic bags. They're like, I have them. I heard they end up in landfills. Ralph's won't take them. I heard the oil industries are taking advantage of COVID-19 and using it to promote. Someone else asked about milk carton bins. Which one? Do you put them in the black bin? Do you not? And then 2 different answers, like with links and everything. One person said they go in the black bin because they're actually, laminated and they're considered food waste. And another guy wrote back, actually, in the city of LA, they go in the blue barrel, right? And he doesn't know the difference either. And like, so everyone, there's just a lot of like misinformation and confusion out there. There was one woman who posted this link to this investigative story called Life in Plastic, California's Recycling Woes. And it's about a 30-minute, I posted the link in this slideshow because it's worth watching. And it's an investigative story about like what actually happens to our recycling. And the main points, I'll read this through really quickly. The recyclables from our blue bins are being dumped in landfills in Southern California and all over America because China and a lot of developing countries aren't purchasing it anymore. There's complicated mixed materials that can't be recycled. It's cheaper to actually produce new plastic than to recycle it. Every community has a different recycling program, so there's no cohesiveness between communities and cities and states. The sad thing is, even when China and other countries were buying our recycling, a lot of it wasn't being recycled, and it was recycled, and it was just ending up in our oceans. Styrofoam, basically all of it, even though there are a lot of ads saying that can be recycled, it's not. DART is the largest producer of styrofoam. They say they recycle it, but they don't because it's a money-losing endeavor. And there's really powerful lobbyists showing up anytime a city or community is considering a single-use plastic ban. So in 2019, California lawmakers proposed that there would be regulation on single-use plastics in the country. The bills never made it to the final vote in LA because there was heavy lobbying. And so it's just like kind of a mess and a little bit disheartening, or a lot disheartening. I just kind of want to, it's a lot of talking points and a lot of different facts, and it's like overwhelming. I'm a photographer, so I think that sometimes visual images can be, a lot more powerful than just words. If you don't know this photographer, he is an activist, an environmental photographer. His work is pretty unsettling. He has a lot of really, really powerful photo projects with messages about our unconscious behaviors in our everyday lives, leading you to conclusions about the consequences of what arises from our daily habits. And he has this particular series called Message from the Gyre, and he photographed decomposing carcasses of albatross that have died ingesting plastic. And I know these images are hard to look at, but he basically was in these islands and he photographed the carcasses of baby birds whose mothers had, gone and picked up bits of plastic they'd mistaken for food. And these birds just died. I'm just going to show you a couple images because it's like they didn't even have a chance. So, like the fact that so many of us are we're being lied to about really what happens to our recycling. Like maybe if we really knew the truth, we wouldn't buy these items. And so that's really where I started examining what I used and purchased on a regular basis to see if there were plastic-free alternatives. And this is really just the beginning because it's like, it's like you're diving down the rabbit hole as you start exploring this topic. So when I share this list of products, I just want you guys to know that it's a compilation of products I've researched and I personally use. They are by no means perfect, but they're better. I in no way benefit financially from recommending these products or companies, and this list is merely a starting point and really should be used as a resource to inspire your own journey minimizing or eliminating plastics in your life. So I'll start with garbage bags because I never understood why we would wrap our garbage in more garbage. And I found two brands that work really well and they're sturdy and they hold the garbage and they don't kind of decompose when you're lifting them out into the bins. Stout by Envision and Repurpose. I kind of underneath every company put some bullet points which you can read along. Some of them are doing really cool things like Stout by Envision, they are made in the US by people who are blind or visually impaired. I think that's super cool. Repurpose, they are compostable within 90 to 180 days. This is one of those things I was like, well, we buy a lot of these. So it's this is an obvious choice. I've been using these waste bins called Rebin. They're a company in Vermont because I get the paper one-use grocery bags and I just slide them in and I use them for our cans and recyclables. And they're cool and we have them around the house and that's not perfect either because I guess you could just say, well, don't buy the bin and don't use the plastic bag and bring your own, which we do that too. But I think they're doing cool things. Dental floss. This is bamboo dental floss. It comes in a glass container with a lid and the carton is 100% compostable and you can save the glass container for refills that you can buy. Toothpaste. David's toothpaste is great. It comes in a recyclable metal tube. They are check out their website. They are doing such cool things. They're really into sustaining the U.S. economy and, basically sussing materials and ingredients from America. Household cleaning products. Grove Collaborative is this company I recently discovered. They've been around for a while, but they have a commitment by 2025 to be 100% plastic free. So they are still selling a lot of items on their website that have plastic, but some of the things I noticed, they have aluminum refill containers for hand soap and dish detergent. And that's pretty easy to recycle. And then little concentrate containers where you can put it in a spray bottle and then you add water and it comes in glass and aluminum caps. And I just think their commitment is amazing. I use Supernatural. This is a great company. They plant trees for every purchase. They also do concentrates. Their products smell great, and their packaging is beautiful. Pet waste bags, bio bags. We have a Labradoodle, as you saw in my earlier slide. And again, just like the garbage bags, I was like, oh gosh, let's do something that's compostable because I felt so guilty. So we definitely ordered these compostable corn. They're made out of corn and biodegradable materials. Toilet paper. So this is a company called Who Gives a Crap. They're doing great things. They donate 50% of their profits to help build toilets to people in need. And their toilet paper comes wrapped in paper and they're really fun colors. And, it's definitely a corporate company with kind of a sense of humor and they have fun messaging on it. Laundry detergent. There's a laundry detergent made by this girl in Chicago called Meliora, and they have a subscription service and it comes in paper sacks without any of like the plastic one-use like scoops. So I think they're doing really great things and it works very well. Deodorant, this company Native does plastic-free packaging deodorant, and it comes in cardboard. They have great scents, and my husband loves it, and I feel very guilt-free. They also sell you know, deodorant in plastic containers, but I love that they're making an effort to fight plastic pollution. And then this company, to kind of end, is called No Play, and it's a company over in England, and they are creating plastic-free packaging that's edible and biodegradable. It's made out of seaweed and plant material, and they are really committed to, like, you know, those single-use condiment packets that just end up, you know, in our oceans and in our landfills, like from salad dressing to drinks to juices. I mean, it's you should check out their website because it's so inspiring to see what they're up to. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention John and Ryan of the Minimalist. This is kind of taking a turn because it's not about, but they are really, if you haven't heard of them, they are have a couple documentaries out which are worth watching because their story is so inspiring about kind of getting off like the corporate ladder and practice and starting minimalism and spreading the word, like reducing just stuff in their life. I actually, you see, I had to put a screenshot from my Instagram of me with them. I went and saw them speak pre-COVID in 2017, and they are like the nicest guys. And I think their message is really important. So I really encourage you, if you don't know about them, to check them out. They're doing awesome work. I posted some links to some other great articles, which I won't go into, but I can share after the talk. And then what I want you left with is that, you know, you can start small. What you purchase and what you don't does make a difference. Just get informed and attend city council meetings and be heard. I've done that a couple times. It's kind of a cool experience if you haven't done that before. When things are being voted on, like you get time, like the public gets time to be heard at 2 minutes, and I definitely try it out. And I think right now they're doing stuff on Zoom, but you know, and share with others. Share all everything that we've shared from these talks with your friends and family. Yeah, thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Chris. It's such interesting information and so many resources that you just shared. Lots of different products, and it's just great advice and so nice to hear your journey. So thank you for sharing that with us. It's very inspiring and moving. And I know that just so everyone knows, we'll be making that available. So these products and recommendations that Chris has, that'll be available to you. And also just encouraging everyone to pay attention to the chat. There's lots of resources being shared in the chat as well. And it's just a lot of great advice, and Chris did a lot of work. So it's nice to be able to piggyback on your work, Chris, so we don't have to do all that research. I also want to mention that Hamid talked about the Angels Club. The Angels Club is the angels that support Zero Debris. It's only a $5 a month donation. I'm just going to share in the chat right now a form that you can fill out. Either just say, yes, I want to do it, or to ask to send us questions or ask for more information. So I'm going to share that form right now. And if you want to do it, or you aren't sure but you're thinking about it, then just fill that out. So it's a quick form. Okay, did you want to?
Yes.
Introduce our next person?
Next? Yes. Our next speaker is very, very close to my heart, Alyssa Stevens. I would describe her as passionate, very determined when she puts her goal on something, and just an outstanding human being. She is a Star Wars nerd. And recently she started her podcast about getting real. And how many episodes do you have, Alyssa? Like, I think it's just...
There's 10. Released the 10th, and then we've got 6 months more worth already in the can.
And it's about sustaining and how to improve the quality of life in protecting our planet. So she is an advocate and really in environmental, and I'm very happy to introduce Alyssa Stevens, and let's hear from her. Okay.
Thanks, Jess.
And we also wanted to make sure everyone knows that you'll have a chance to share, and we'll do a discussion at the end, so you can stay tuned for that.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. I'm super happy to be here. I know there's a lot of people who are close to my heart here, and it's an honor to share with all of you. So as Jessica mentioned, I am a sustainability podcaster. I have a podcast called Get Real with Alyssa Stevens. And for me, sustainability is about finding ways to improve your quality of life while also protecting the planet. I don't think that you can have one without the other. And I think that making sustainable changes is a lot more enjoyable when you can improve your quality of life. So for me, those changes start not only in, as Chris and the other speakers have pointed to, ways that they've discussed, but I think that sustainable change really starts in the mind. And it starts with when we look at how we relate to the things and the beings around us and the earth. So I'm going to talk to you about clutter culture, and how we can reorient our habits to reduce clutter. So here we go with the screen share. And pardon the gorgeous lighting that is here. Okay. Can you guys see that? Can someone confirm?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
great. Okay. Perfect. You can see the slide only, right? Can someone say yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, perfect.
Yes.
All right, so clutter. We have a culture of clutter and consumption. We are accustomed to getting whatever we want, whenever we want, showing up at our doorstep same day or next day. And then we get rid of it, and we don't have to think about what happens to it next. Chris, you did a perfect job teeing up some of the things that I want to build on based off of what you shared. So it's perfect. I think so. In the 1900s, the single-use items and disposable items came out, and that was a revolutionary concept for the time. It was huge for progress in many industries, and it created a lot of efficiency, but it also created this attachment to this idea of consumption. And also, I would assert that over time, we have grown to have the things that are around us have less value. We're not that attached to what they are, and they don't have a lot of value. In recent years, we've started to overcorrect to having a culture of decluttering in some spaces. We all know Marie Kondo, sparking joy. That's a whole other conversation. But I would say all of this is coming out of the idea that clutter has an impact. It not only impacts our space, it affects our stress levels. It even affects our ability to breathe well if the things around you are collecting dust. And it affects our wallets. If we are not attuned to what is around us, we overbuy things all of the time and we don't use them, they spoil. And it creates a lot of inefficiencies in our life. So what if everything in your home sparked joy? And what if everything in your home had value? And what if you enjoyed everything in your home? Getting rid of things that we don't need feels good, but I also want to transition now to what it does for the planet. When things leave our hand or our houses, it's out of sight, out of mind. So what happens in that item's next life and the next life? I'm going to transition to connect the dots about how clothing in particular moves through its life cycles when it comes to us and when it leaves our hands. And the opportunity here is to really look inward and think about how you relate to the clothing that you have and what your mindfulness is about clothing in particular. Kind of jarring image. Americans generate 16 million tons of textile waste a year. On average, 700,000 tons of used clothing are exported overseas. 2.5 million tons of clothing are recycled, but over 3 million tons are incinerated and 10 million get sent to landfills. So I would probably guess that every single one of us has donated something to Goodwill at some point. I want to share with you what happens when we give things to Goodwill, because I think it feels good to know that we donate things and we give them a chance at a second life. But the reality is that once you give something up, you're kind of putting it in someone else's hands to take care of it. So what actually happens to that? When you send things to Goodwill, workers go through those items to make sure they're usable and they're not toxic. If no one likes your clothes after 4 weeks, they're taken. And by the way, disclosure, I don't know how different this is in COVID, because I know that's been a factor, but if no one likes your clothes, in 4 weeks, they're taken off the shelf and they go to a Goodwill outlet and sold at a ridiculously low price, like 99 cents. There's Goodwill auctions where bidders can bid on huge bins for as little as $35 without knowing anything of what's inside. So it's kind of like Storage Wars, but for donated clothes. The textile recycling centers take your clothes where they will be resold in the US, cut into rags, or processed into this soft fiber filling that goes inside furniture or home insulation. And then they can also be sent overseas to salvage dealers. So once overseas, the clothing floods, this isn't every time, but it often floods markets in developing countries like Haiti. In Haiti, there are so many containers of what they call pepe, which is used clothing. It's sent every year. And the locals in this country have become accustomed to essentially having their home be a dumping ground for things, textiles that other countries don't need. And so what started as, charity, and I believe what started was as great intention, has kind of decimated this local industry and put thousands of people out of work. And it has created this dependency on waste for them to survive. So all this is to say that purchases do not start or end with you. We are just one link in this long chain. And so we have to think about items in terms of not what the next life is, but what's the next life. And we have to be responsible for the very last place that something could end up. We got to think 3 steps ahead and be proactive and anticipate. So let's talk about this beautiful, gorgeous, very aesthetically pleasing waste pyramid, thanks to Roadrunner, which is a recycling company. So I want to talk about, I think with sustainable actions, as the other speakers have pointed to, there's good, better, and best actions, and you have to find the right entry point that works for you. So with this waste period, it's just a very simple graphic methodology to look at ways that you can reduce waste, and where, of all the ways to do it, where's the best place to start. You'll see that recycling is on the bottom, and Chris did a great job of breaking this down, but recycling is, you want to avoid doing it as much as possible. The best thing that you can do is to refuse. And this goes for not just textiles, but pretty much anything. The best thing you can do is refuse. So the most sustainable way to declutter is to avoid clutter in the first place. Not too hard to understand, right? So refuse to buy wasteful or non-recyclable products. You want to refuse single-use utensils is a huge one. I know we've done a lot of takeout these days, being in quarantine, and they just put them in there. You don't need them. Unless you like using the little plastic ones, which are kind of a pain anyway, but that's a whole other story. So buy less before you buy anything. Even before buying more sustainable products, use what you have. If it's not from you, it's going to go to someone else, and the same thing's going to happen. Use what you have before you buy more toothpaste. Use those 5 little travel size tubes that you get at your dentist, or refuse those altogether. Create a habit of decluttering so that you know consistently what you have and what you need, and go for quality over quantity so that you can increase the longevity of your belongings. All of this requires you to think a few steps ahead and to remind yourself. So you also want to look for, like, what structure can I put in place so that I remember to slow down and pause and look before I buy. Reduce is the second. When you're using a product, use the minimum amount required, like disposable plates if you have to use those, or if you're printing a document, do it double-sided so you don't have to print as much paper. and reduce the amount of products that you're using that are wasteful and non-recyclable. Below that is reuse. Throwaway culture is out and reuse is in. All of my outfit repeaters out there, yes, this is it. So even if something, and I would also say, even if something isn't designed to be reused forever, like a cardboard box or I don't know, a food container, you can take care of it and reuse it for as long as it works and as long as it's appropriate. After that, repurpose. Use creativity to give products a second life or even a second purpose. There's a million blogs out there that have ways that you can repurpose things. So for the sake of time, I'm not going to go too far into that, but I will share some of my favorite ways to get creative. So donations. If you see that a donation is the best way to get rid of waste, just know that anytime you put the choice in someone else's hand, there's a chance it will just end up as waste downstream. So you want to donate intentionally by making sure that it gets to someone. So this means give things to people in your life. Go to women's shelters or have clothing swaps, maybe socially distanced ones. Have clothing swaps. Another thing you can do is sell in online marketplaces such as eBay, Poshmark, The RealReal for those really like nice, good quality items, Nextdoor, Facebook Marketplace. And as a bonus, you can get some cash back, which to put forth toward the next thing that you want to buy sustainably. So another thing is an eco-friendly junk collector. So there's a company called LoadUp, which will come and collect your items. They'll strip them down and actually sell the components back to recycling companies, which is pretty cool because we're not going to do that. And so the last thing is recycling. The worldwide recycling rate is 8%. 8%. The system has a lot of breakdowns. So it's not perfect. And you want to, when you are recycling, want to know that every place, every city, even where I live in the beach communities, there's different guidelines for each city within a mile of each other. So when you do recycle, you want to contact your local waste management company so that you know exactly how it needs to be done so you can do it accurately. So what I want to leave you with, there's a few things. Slow down, think about it. Practice, practice, practice. It's not going to happen overnight. As Stefan said, incremental changes over time really help. Another thing is see how much value you can create with what's around you. I will say I got on the Marie Kondo train last year and I cannot be more grateful. I love everything that's in my house. I love it. And I use it all. So I feel much more connected to and proud of and empowered in the things that I have around me. Also, make it a game. I think we underestimate our impact and we can get really serious about it because obviously this is not the most, at face value, not the most empowering thing to talk about. But if you make it a game, then you can actually see your impact and make it fun. So keep a log of the last time you had to go shopping for toiletries. I just noticed that I started this log a year ago and I haven't shopped for certain things in over a year because of applying these principles. And also, quantify how many pieces of clothing, if you're donating, quantify how many pieces of clothing you're donating. That's how many people have shirts on their backs because of what you did. The last thing is, it's a ripple effect. Everything we do is a ripple effect. Everything we as individuals do affect communities and people we will never see, places we will never see, will never meet. So slow down, think, and choose, and just know that you can affect what kind of ripple effect you make and how far it will go. And that's all I got. Thank you.
Thanks, Alyssa. That was so great. And it's great to see those images and everything too, so we can really see what happens when we put things in the trash can. So thank you for that poignant talk with everyone and great suggestions. Do you have anything to add, Jessica?
No, I think it was just to see the pyramid and how many options we have. And I think what I'm left with is just slow down and make sure the ripple effect of what you purchase, but also when you donate, like it's not like, okay, you leave it there. There's actually a process, and just make sure what you leave there, it basically goes and gets recycled. So that's my takeaway.
Yeah. And I think it's really great information, and just helps us all get thinking. So I hope that everyone has really had a good chance to get into this whole world and the whole conversation and get a lot of ideas, find out what are the talking points in these areas, and just learn more and feel more educated about everything. And I think it helps us figure out more like what actions that we can take. So we'll be talking about that. Also, right now we're going to be going over some zero debris announcements. So Hamid, can I hand it over to you for the zero debris announcements?
Sure. Are we going to do the forum first, or what?
No, first is the announcement, and then is a community discussion.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're gonna have a chance. I've got a bunch of ideas, and I want to ask some of those questions to the speakers. So if you have time, we're gonna have that for about 20 minutes right after. But one of the announcements is the Angels Club, which we've talked a little bit about. Carissa posted a link. Carissa, if you want to share that again, to fill out if you're interested to be a supporter of the Angels Club for Zero Debris, or be one of the Angels Club members of Zero Debris. You can click and just fill out your interest, and with that, we'll follow up to accept your monthly donation of $5. Or if you're interested, if you don't want to do a donation, or if you'd like to do a birthday pledge, what that means is that on your birthday, you can simply choose to have Zero Debris receive donations from any of your friends or family on Facebook. And that's also an Angel Club membership that supports the organization. So if you're interested in either of those, that would really help us out to continue expanding this mission that we have to have Zero Debris in the world. So click on the link that Carissa sent.
If you have questions, or if you just want more information, you can fill out the form. So the form isn't like a final sign up. So you just put any of your information or questions in there, and we'll get back to you.
Yeah, that's it from me, right?
I think so. Yeah. And then Matt, did you want to share about the April event?
I do. Thank you. I have to just really briefly credit to the speakers. That was phenomenal. Really inspiring and a powerful presentation, and you gave us like actions to take, and it's just inspiring. So thank you. I'd also like to acknowledge everyone on this call, because if you're on this call, it means you're really committed to seeing a difference in this world, and you're showing up and seeing what can be done about that. So thank you, everyone. My name is Matt Wolf. I am responsible for helping create and manage our events, which are usually once a month for Zero Debris. And in respect of the pandemic, our events have been pretty much online. And we have an event in April coming up, which is right now, the dates are April 22nd and April 25th. We're taking that weekend. And on those two dates, we're going to have like bookend calls, an opening call and a closing call for that weekend. So you can just know that we have that established, and we're still in the process of creating this. So please check out our website and Facebook to see ongoing details. Basically, we're going to have those two calls that are going to encapsulate the weekend. And we're also going to create some online challenges and some games you can play, and some actions we can take in those two calls for the weekend. I was very inspired by this call and the mock we did for this call. So there's going to be some recreations of maybe some speakers, and we're still creating events. So as of now, and lastly, we're also creating a broader event, which is like a debris-a-thon, where we actually give incentive for people to pick up pounds of trash or whatever, just plastic, everything, and keep that an ongoing event to get the momentum. And we'll be creating a lot of that on those two bookend calls on the weekend. So please just be in the listening for those. And again, check the website for updated details about it.
Thanks, Matt. Is there any specific dates right now, or the dates TBA?
Well, we have April 22nd, Thursday, and April 25th on Sunday. So we can all get present how the weekend looks. And then that's all we really have established.
And what time is it?
We don't have that established yet.
Okay, great. So I think
Thursday evening and Sunday evening.
Okay, so I think what would be great is if you want to be on that call, so that you can join in and learn more and support. maybe send a chat to Matt and he can follow up with you, get you the details. Does that work for you, Matt?
Perfectly. I can put my information in the chat, and if anybody even wants to join in and create with Zero Debris, how this might look, feel free.
So
And
that's
again,
on the 22nd and the 25th.
yes. So
Sorry.
22nd, 25th.
Okay. Is there anything else, Matt,
I'm not present to it.
to add? Okay, great. Just
Thank you,
checking. Thank you, Matt. As you can see, there's so many things that are being created. Zero Debris. You know, it's an exciting conversation to be in. So, what we're going to do now is we're going to be talking about just going to you. So this is your chance to share. And the question of the hour is, what are your takeaways? So just whoever wants to share, what are your takeaways? And just unmute yourself and share what's there for you. We'll keep the shares to about 60 seconds long. You can keep an eye on the time so everyone has a chance to say something. So when you're ready, you can just unmute yourself.
Hi guys, I'll jump in. I am so happy I was on the call. I thought I wasn't going to be able to make it, but I'm here, and I had no idea. I always like looked at those green bins and I saw like branches and trees and stuff in there, and I was like, what are those for? But I'm so excited that I can compost now because I have those green bins. Everybody that spoke was incredible, and I'm very empowered to make more conscious decisions, and thank you guys all for organizing and causing this. And I don't know if that's 60 seconds, but thank you.
I think under, so you did great. Thanks, Judith. If you're ready to share, just unmute yourself.
Hi, this is Martha Lacroix. I am just so impressed, and I'm now so present to why we need to do this. The things that I have seen in these presentations is amazing, and it really makes us present. So, hey, good work, outstanding. Thank you.
Thank you, Martha, and thanks for acknowledging the team. Everyone did such a great job today. Who would like to share next?
Hey guys, it's Regina. Awesome job, super excited, and you know, have my nephew here. We're gonna actually go pick up trash later. So we have our grabbers, and you know, the composting thing, you know, that's easy. Like I was like, oh cool, we can do that, right? We can do that. So what did you want to say from the call? Did you want to say anything? You want to say thank you? Say thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
It's great to hear that you, Regina, like I hear from Judith and then Marta and Regina, like you guys are open and like also taking an action. That's what we wanna and just to say a little bit, like this organization came with the founder with Ulrich, and he passed away, and then he left us with this legacy. And by no means we're here in our free time. We have things to do, a lot of things to do ourselves, and we're part of this team, and we want to make sure is that we leave a legacy, you know, in future years. It's about our future generations, and yeah, we just want to spread the word. And if you guys can just embrace and just take an action today, and then just keep on sharing, that would really fulfill what we want to create in here, like just the ripple effect, because we only have one planet. And like again, just thank you for being here. Just wanted to share that.
And Jessica, real quick, I just wanted to add, thank you for saying that. The April event, it marks a year since Ulrich's passing. He's the founder of Zero Debris. So we're going to incredibly be honoring him for that event.
Thank you, Matt. And thanks for the comments in here. Paul said, so inspiring. And Deshna said, this was amazing. Thank you so much. Does anyone else want to share about your takeaways from today? Just unmute yourself.
Paolo.
Yeah, I would really like to share because I started a project also to reduce, make people mindful about consumption behavior. And I noticed that I was a bit like, you know, things are going up and down. But now after this conversation, I'm just like pumped because there's no, why would we wait? So I'm just going to shift my action based on this conversation, and thanks to all the speakers and to creating this event. So thank you very much. Absolutely.
That's great to hear. Thank you,
Thank
Paula.
you, Paula.
And
want
Go
to jump
ahead.
in real quick from Alyssa's talk. All the speakers had such amazing, powerful information, but from Alyssa's talk, I was reminded of, you know, in the refuse, I always loved seeing like the Japanese simplicity, you know, life where they have very few things. And I was like, how can you do that when I knew I had like 15 sets of shoes under my bed, you know, and I could grab, you know, one for this and one for that. But a couple of years ago, I had the opportunity to go live in Mexico for a year. I took over kind of like a sabbatical, and all I could take with me was one suitcase and a, you know, and a carry-on. And in that, I had only like two pairs of shoes, one sandals, and like some, you know, just running shoes, and just a couple of pairs of clothes. And I just want to say that before I thought it was impossible, and I'm not saying you need to go to that level, but I just want to say that it made my life so simple to have just enough clothes for the type of activities that I had, that it actually made my life, I felt like 10 years younger. I felt so much happier. Some of my body pain went away. It's so weird. I'm not saying it's all related, but the fact that my life became more simple because I had fewer things to worry about, it was really an amazing, eye-opening thing. And just wanted to leave you guys with that from what I took away.
Thank you, Hamid.
Hamid, I think I believe that Steve Jobs wore the same thing every day, and his reasoning behind that was the freedom that he had of not being consumed by thoughts of something as simple as what to put on in his closet. So I love that.
Zero debris in his head.
Yes.
Well, thank you. And we're going to go to Darren here in a minute to acknowledge and complete the event. And also, if I just wanted to say it's last chance to fill out the form for if you want to join the Angels Club or do a birthday pledge, or if you just want us to give you some more information. I want to put that in the chat one more time. And we'll go to Darren now.
Thanks, Carissa. So I think the acknowledgements have been pretty well covered already by everybody. But I do want to thank everybody for being a part of this conversation today. It's an important one, and I think we can have more people on this conversation next time. And I challenge all of you to invite people to the next one, because that's really the purpose of this, is to get more people involved and aware of what's going on in our environment. So please do attend the next one, and also invite others so that we can expand upon this conversation and reach more people. Thank you, Carissa and Jessica, for leading us through the event, and Hamid for your leadership always in being the president of the organization. Special thanks to Tristan and Matt, who are also board members. And I do want to acknowledge, it's 1 minute over. I do want to end this on time. I just want to say thank you to everybody for showing up again.
Yes, thanks.
And one last thing, I put the image behind me so I wouldn't forget. I do want to acknowledge Ulrich, who is the founder, and like Matt said, has passed. But we do this to honor his memory as well. And nobody was more passionate about zero debris than Ulrich. So, all right, you guys, till the next time.
Yes.
Please come back.
Thank you.
Thank you, Darren. I also want to acknowledge you for your commitment also to this organization. Thank you, Darren. You make it work.
Yes, you do. And for information about everything that was shared today, can Darren or Tristan share about how people can get that information? Or the speakers? What structure is in place for that?
Yeah, hello. So a lot of what has been said today will be shared, in a survey. We're going to be sharing PDFs and emails, and also a lot of actions that we talked about will be coming to our social media platforms. I have created a media team. We're developing video content that will be on social media. So it's all about how to repurpose items, how to recycle them, where to recycle them, where you can find multiple resources. So it's all very exciting. So stay in contact with us, follow our social media pages. We're on Pinterest, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, you name it.
Great. So everyone, you can expect to get an email with all the information from today. And also Matt just put his information in the chat as well. If you want to reach out to Matt or just send him a text right now if you are interested in getting in on those phone calls on the 22nd and 25th and helping with creating that. Well, thanks everybody. Have a great rest of your weekend and thanks for being here.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great Saturday.
Tristan, can you
Have a
screen
beautiful
share
day,
the
everybody.
presentation and the music?
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Until next time.
Great to see everyone.
Thank you.
Oh, Laura Evans.
Laura. Yeah. Good to see you.
I finished early.
Laura Stevens. You're still on here. There she goes.
Who's Laura Stevens? Is that your mom?
Grandma.
Oh, grandma.
Hey, Angeles, Jessica's mom. Hi. Good to see you guys.
All right, well, we've got a minute left to wrap this up, so I'll make it quick. Completion of the game. Let's see. So our game was that we had at least 250 people attend the Zoom event. I think what we actually had was somewhere around 40, but I'm not sure. We'll have to go back and run those stats. We did have somewhere around 70 confirmed through Eventbrite. So there are some steps to take to expand on this for the next one. Let's see. Second, Ulrich was acknowledged for being the founder and spirit behind the organization. That happened a couple times. At least 100 new people agreed to receive our emails. We'll find out via the forms that go out. But that would take a little something, considering we didn't have over 70 people respond. Same thing. We will make a request via the form that they post to social media, and Tristan, I'll work with you on creating some graphics that we can put out there in that email as well. And then the last thing was that Chris, Stefan, Ina, and Alyssa were all acknowledged for their leadership and commitment. And I think that happened multiple times. And Alyssa, since you're still on here, thank you again. Your support is always welcomed and really appreciated.
Anytime.
And let me just say, like, in spite of anything that was going on with Alyssa, she pulled it off. She delivered because she said her word was gonna be in here, and I just wanted to say that, Alyssa, that's who you are, and thank you for your presence and for causing others and inspiring them and empowering them. So I love you.
Yeah, you nailed it. You were present. Thank you.
Darren, I still need to get you the put on the sheet the information to send out.
Okay.
But should I do that? By when should I do that?
I would like to get that email out by the end of the day today. So, I mean, tonight, basically.
Okay.
As long as it's within, like, I want to get it out this calendar day on the 15th.
Yeah.
So that could be 11 at night, whatever.
I'll text you when it's done. Okay.
Okay, and then so the breakdown in this game is that a lot of the results we have shifted to getting the results from the form fill outs. Marissa, I wasn't aware that you were gonna do a form thing for Angels Club. So is there a way did that form, I guess that form's already created, so it's gonna be 2 forms now. Okay, so.
Yeah, sorry.
No, it's all good. I think it's
We
just
talked about it briefly, like for a second. I think we talked about it in our meeting, but we didn't talk about it very much.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think I learned a lot from today's event, that's for sure. And took some pretty extensive notes. And I'm excited for what we created. I think it was really great. And I really hope people took away at least one action to take, because that was our goal. And we will find out in the forums. Is there anything else you guys want to say about the event? Or